Hey kids, it's Miss Amber. Today we are going to read A Chair for My Mother. It is a classic. I read it, or it was read to me, and then I read it when I was a little girl. And so I thought that I would read it to you guys. It is by Vera B. Williams. A Chair for My Mother. To the memory of my mother, Rebecca Porringer Baker. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go and meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salt and the peppers and fill up the ketchups. One time, I peeled all the onions for onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me. And every time, I put half of my money into the jar. And there is the Blue Tile Diner. And there's the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all of the change from her tips out of her purse for me to count, and then we push all the coins into the jar. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out into piles. Some days she has lots of tips, and some days she has only a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into the jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually Grandma sits with us too while we count, and she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Wherever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas or something she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. And there they all are in the kitchen. And there's a pretty chair. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we are going to take all the money out and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair, a wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with red roses all over it. We are going to get the best chair in the whole world. And that is the one that they want to buy. This is because our old chair burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All of our chairs burned. So did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't a long time ago at all. It's her and her mom. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals, and she had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips, and she was saying she liked the red ones, and I liked the yellow ones. And then we came to our block. And there is the fire and the fire trucks. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see a lot of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran towards us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, "She's here, she's here, she's okay, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. But everything else in the whole house was spoiled. And that's what it looked like afterward. What was left of our house was turned to charcoal and to ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, my Aunt Ida, and my Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into an apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the room was very empty. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa bought us a beautiful rug. My mother's other sisters, Sally, had made us a red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans and silverware and dishes, and my cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You are all the kindest people," she said. "We thank you very much. It's lucky we're young and we can start all over." Everybody was being so nice to them, helped them get everything that they needed for their new apartment. Oh, and there's the jar. That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chair. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. There's no good place for me to take a load off of my feet, she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. So that's how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started going into the jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift down. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter, and he had to boost me up so that I could put it in. Looks pretty full. I don't think they can get anything else in there, do you? After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full, Mama said. My mother brought me home a little paper wrappers for the nickels and the dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we all took the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills. We then took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. And here they are. They're all testing out the chairs. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and smaller chairs, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and harder chairs. Grandma says she felt like Goldilocks and the 3 bears, trying out all of these chairs. There's all the chairs that they tried out. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy, and they came right down in their pickup to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. And there it is. It looks like the one that they wanted at the beginning of the book, doesn't it? I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it while they carried it up to the door. We set the chair right beside the window, and with the red and white curtains, Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now my grandma sits in it and talks with people that go by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. After supper, I sit with her, and she can reach right up and turn out the light if I fall asleep in her lap. And there's the picture that they took together. The end.